Dear friends, in fact, I'm very happy to be here addressing you on this very important occasion. And in the course of this big event, in fact, you have been listening to the speeches made by important political leaders in the forenoon, and I'm sure that all of you have been in some way associated with this whole project for the past almost 1 year. So I don't have to tell you the importance of this event, and everybody has described it as a very unique event in the history of the legislature in this country. And certainly, I think there is a great amount of convergence of opinion on the importance of this conference, where all the legislators from this country come together, share their experiences, and share their views. And it also gives them an occasion to make friends with others. That is also very important. Because the friendship is something, which is almost missing from our public life. And therefore, from that point of view also, it's a very important occasion. And I must, before I come to the main subjects that we have to discuss today, I must take this opportunity to record my great appreciation, thanks to Mr. Rahul Karad, for conceiving this whole project. In fact, about 3 years ago, at the initial stages, when he discussed it with me, when we were in London, in Delhi, he came to Delhi, and he discussed it with me. It was at a very embryonic stage at that time, and I felt very impressed by the way he was speaking about it, the kind of enthusiasm which he was showing. But I was not very sure about the success of this venture, because it is such a gigantic task, assembling all the legislators who are running into about 4,000 people to come to a particular place. That itself, it was a mind-boggling kind of exercise. And although I did not want to discourage him at that stage, I said, okay, let us go ahead. And whatever, I can do, I will certainly do that. In the sense I can contact people and then kind of appeal to them to come and participate in this conference. But I too had no clear idea about how it is going to be. The scale of it. Of course, I knew that there are more than 4,000 legislators in this country. But he did not give up. He pursued it with such zeal and vigor. And today we see the result here. It is something, which I never expected, that it could be held at such a scale and with such success. And now the thinking is that we should carry on this exercise. It is not a one-time affair. It should continue. There must be some kind of a permanent structure put in place so that we can continue with this exercise. That, I think, they are putting some thought into it. Perhaps they may be announcing it in the valedictory function tomorrow. Now, coming to the subject matter that we are going to discuss here today. The secretaries of the legislature, they have a kind of a different function. Legislators, we have gone through the subjects which have been chosen for detailed discussion, the group discussion, 25 of these groups are meeting simultaneously. They are discussing so many other things which the MLAs or the legislators are concerned with. You are not directly concerned with those things. But there is one particular issue which you are concerned with. After all, you are the prime movers of the legislature. And your experience and your wisdom all are required to see that the house runs smoothly. So it is not only the job of the politicians, it is actually you, because you hold the key. You turn it this way, the whole thing stops. You turn it that way, it moves. That kind of thing, you are in such a position. Therefore, you have a very, although it's a slightly different role that you have to play, but you have a very significant role. And that's a very, very important role. I was going through the subjects. Now, there is one particular thing, with which you are concerned. That is legislative performance living up to the expectations. That's what you are directly concerned with. Legislative performance, that is performance in the House. And there, you know that you have the rules to run the House. And of course, houses may not run perfectly according to the rules all the time, but your duty is to see that the House runs according to the rules. That is there. Now, we have seen from our experience. I spent 40 years in the Lok Sabha. From our experience, we can say that the opposition always pick bones because they don't get opportunities to discuss issues which they consider important. This is a perennial problem. This we have faced in the Parliament. Discussion on issues. After all, Parliament is meant for, assemblies are meant for discussion and debate. What will you discuss? Now, we know that system is such that we are not putting the subjects before the House and taking a vote on that. So every member has a right to discuss issues. There are rules which govern that. And therefore, but your duty is to ensure that the rules are being adhered to so that members get opportunities. There is a saying, that opposition will have its, or should have its say, and the government will have its way. So opposition's job is to present issues before the House. Opposition's job is to certainly to put the government on the mat, to criticize the government. It is not a criticism for the sake of criticism. Certainly they have something to say. They disagree with certain things which the government is doing. Naturally, they have the right to say that. But the assembly secretaries, we are all kind of impartial observers. Not observers, we are impartial. We are not wedded to this side or that side. Your guide is the rule book. And if you go by the rule book and advise the speaker, so that is your main job, advise the speaker on the rules, then I think lot many issues could be sorted out. What I have found is that the government, whichever government it is, does not want to discuss certain things, certain issues. And the opposition wants to discuss them. So there is a tussle between the government, disagreement between the government and the opposition. And it goes on, and there will be ruckus in the House, and then there will be walk out and this and that, and walk in. All these kind of things happen. But these days, it is disruption of the House. People come to the well of the House, shout slogans, and the House is not able to function. This kind of a thing is happening in Parliament very frequently. In fact, it used to happen in the assemblies earlier, but with greater frequency and with greater intensity, it is happening in the Parliament now. That is it. So after all, Parliament is the place where discussions should take place. The problem is, I think I can discuss things, from a realistic point of view here. You are all aware of things. Whenever you have a strong chief minister or the prime minister, the system gets weaker. whether it is the Assembly or Parliament. You just look at your own experience. You just see your own experience. The executive becomes stronger, so the system becomes weaker. That's how it is, whether it is Parliament or the Assembly. Whenever it happens, this is the result. And then the decision is taken at the higher levels, what should be discussed in the House. And the decision is taken at the higher level to deny, to refuse to discuss issues in the House. This often happens, and that seems to be the basic problem so far as ruckus or pandemonium in the House is concerned. Therefore, of course, I know that secretaries have they can't go beyond a limit. After all, it is all, if it is decided at the highest level, then secretaries cannot do much. They can only advise the Speaker that there should be a discussion. But I can tell you one or two things which I did when I was Secretary General. Acharya Ji was the Secretary General, the Speaker. There were many requests for adjournment motion. When the request came, normal practice was to refuse permission to raise the adjournment motion, because adjournment motion contains an element of censure of the government. So it has been a practice not to allow any adjournment motion. Whatever be the subject matter, whether it has merit or not, but don't allow the adjournment motion. I told Acharya Ji, sir, we should go by the merit, because government has the majority. Government will vote it out. So what exactly is the problem? Let there be a discussion. What is the problem? Government has a majority and they can vote it out. So I told the Speaker that I will make a recommendation in the file based on the merit of the issue. He said, I fully agree with you. Let us go ahead with that. And there were many adjournment motions which are admitted by Acharya Ji and discussed in the House. That was a departure from the past practice. Everywhere, I have seen it. In the assemblies, in Parliament, everywhere, adjournment motion is something, it's a kind of a bugbear. We don't want to touch it. The moment adjournment motion comes, you reject it. Why should it happen? That is one thing. The second thing which I did was, the cut motions. And the budget is moot. The demands for grants are moot. The cut motions are moot by the members. In Parliament, the practice was to pick up 2 or 3 demands for detailed discussion. And after that, the rest of the things will be guillotined. But members have the right to move cut motion on every demand. That is your constitutional right. That is the constitutional right of the members to move cut motion. But here, what happened was, the cut motion will be allowed only on the demands which are taken up for discussion in the House. That means majority of the demands will be left out. Nobody will be allowed to exercise, no member will be allowed to exercise his right to move cut motion on other demands which have been left out or which were not discussed. I said it's a very wrong practice. It is against the Constitution, because members have the right to move cut motion. Whether you are discuss it or not, that is a different issue. You have the right to move cut motions, and that was accepted by the Speaker, that Ms. Meera Kumar, and then it was put in the House. Everybody accepted it. I said, it's okay. It's a good thing for the members. Members' right has been established. And Sushma Swaraj, who was the leader of the opposition at that time, came to the Speaker's chamber and said, Madam, even if you don't do anything for the rest of your tenure, this one decision that you have taken is the most memorable decision. So that is the thing. These are the 2 things which I did during my period as Secretary General. What I'm saying is, there are certain things which you could do. If you are right, that you should do. As secretaries, you must do that. Why? To strengthen the system, because that is ultimately your responsibility. To strengthen the system, as I said in the beginning, You hold the key. Therefore, you turn the key in the right way to strengthen the system. That is why I quoted these examples. Now, coming to the one issue which was discussed in the morning. The Deputy Chief Minister of this Maharashtra and the Honorable Speaker of Lok Sabha and many others spoke about it. Passing the bills without discussion. Passing the bills without discussion is a disease which every legislature in this country is suffering from. Parliament, it has been happening. In the assemblies, it has been happening. Now, is it right? Is it constitutionally correct? I just looked at it from that angle, Is it constitutionally correct to pass a bill without discussion? And I would say it is not. I will explain to you why I say this. Article, of course, the rules. Rules have been framed in such a way that detailed discussions have to take place before the bill is passed. There are so many stages the bill passes through, and at each stage there is a discussion. There is a discussion at the consideration stage, that is the general principles. After that, the clause-by-clause consideration, and then the last stage when the bill is put up for passing. These are the three main stages through which a bill passes, and you have ample opportunities to discuss the details of the bill. That is the thing. And then you have the system of committees. If it is referred to the committees will naturally go into all the various details and give a detailed report. So what you get is a good law, and that is what the society wants. The society needs a good bill, sound, foolproof kind of bill. But otherwise, what happens is, if you pass the bill without any discussion, all the faults and all the infirmities which were there in the original draft will remain there when the bill becomes a law. And that affects adversely, that is harmful to the society. That is why the wise men of yore designed the bill, the whole rules and the system in such a way that you get enough of opportunities to discuss the bill in detail and then make a law which is sound, foolproof. That is the thing. Now, I said discussing or passing the bill without discussion is against the Constitution. Now, why I say so? Is my own interpretation I am giving you. You can also think about it. Article 107, if you just go through Article 107, it says one thing, particularly Article 107(2). It says, a bill shall not be deemed to be passed unless it is agreed to by both the houses. Now, agree. Constitution makers have used this word agree. Now, why did they use this word agree? You agree to a thing when you know that thing. Otherwise, you don't agree. And you know the thing only when it is discussed, when the content is known to you. What happens is when a bill is presented before the House, if it is not discussed, if it is just passed, many of the members do not know what exactly the bill contains, unless it is discussed in detail in the House. So according to me, the constitution makers use this word agree from this point of view also. Otherwise, they could have used some other word. Agree means you can agree only when you know the content of this, when you know the details about it. And these details will be known only when the House discusses the bill in detail. Therefore, what I would suggest is that if you allow the bill to be passed without a discussion, you are actually, in a way, violating the constitutional mandate. And therefore, you must insist on the discussion in the House. You must advise the Honorable Speaker. So there is a provision in the Constitution under which it is necessary for us to have a detailed discussion of the House. All the rules have been framed for the purpose of detailed discussion. And these rules are framed, after all, under the Constitution. And therefore, there is a constitutional sanction for a discussion in the bill, a discussion of the bill. Therefore, what is happening in the Parliament and also in the state assemblies is against the spirit of the Constitution, or maybe a kind of a violation, blatant violation of the constitutional provision. This, I quoted Article 107, but in your case, it is Article 196.2. Article 196.2. These are the two articles which say that the houses have to agree to the bill. Then I will just shorten the whole thing. I know that I'm kind of taking more time than perhaps you have allotted me. Anyway, just two more small issues. Now, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is given to members of Parliament so that they express themselves fearlessly in the House. Now, freedom of speech we know that anything that is spoken in the House, for that, no member can be taken to the court. No legal action can be taken against a member. Member has the immunity. You can say anything, provided the rule permits you. And if you say something against a person who is outside the House, and the rule, the chair allows it to go on record, he has no remedy. You have total immunity so far as your freedom of speech in the House is concerned. But according to me, it has another dimension. Now, the members of the Parliament are bound by the opinion of their parties, whether they are assembly members or members of Parliament. They are bound by the party discipline and party views, so they cannot go beyond that. That is something which we have accepted as a given, and therefore nobody will say anything against the party line. So there is something called a party line. So you will not, a ruling party member will never violate that party line. Now what happens is, when the government takes a wrong decision, there is an acceptance of that blindly. Members of Parliament or members of the Assembly, they blindly accept that position. They don't speak out. But here, of course, I know that, I'm aware of the anti-defection law and all that when it comes to voting. They cannot vote against the government. But the point that I'm making is that if you exercise this freedom of speech, you can speak your mind. You can analyze the thing and say that these are the things, or these are the legal infirmities, or these are the going to be the consequences of such a measure, and make the government aware of certain things. You cannot presume that the government knows everything about everything. That's not how it is. So the members of Parliament or the members of the Legislature, they have their own mind, they have their own perceptions about things. So why don't you allow those perceptions to influence the government? After all, when most of the members, or maybe a majority of the members of the Assembly or Parliament, they express certain strong reservation or strong views about a particular measure, the government will certainly think about it, and they will be compelled to take a different view of this. There are many occasions, I've seen, there are occasions when members of Parliament have taken a particular view about a particular thing, and that ultimately forced the government to backtrack on it and come out with something else, or a better thing. This happens. That is the dimension of this article, or this particular freedom of speech in the House. So this is something which you must discuss with the Speaker, all that, because you have that privilege. You can discuss it with the Speaker of the House, who occupies a very important position. The other thing is about, with this I will be finishing now. The other thing is about the independence of the Secretariat. Of course, this I have been, when I was Secretary General, I used to kind of emphasize this particular point in all the conferences of the secretaries. Independence of the Secretariat. You know, the legislature has autonomy, although legislature may not, in fact, follow that autonomy. But Secretariat has autonomy. Why should the Secretariat have autonomy? Because Secretariat is the main instrument of the House. After all, what is the function of the legislature? It is to scrutinize the functioning of the government. The executive is collectively responsible to the legislature. That is the parliamentary system that we have. So ensure that the legislature uses this instrument to ensure the executive accountability. Therefore, the Secretariat is an instrument or is a chief instrument which is used by the legislature to ensure accountability of the executive. Then you can imagine how powerful it is. And this instrument should be kept powerful. This should always remain powerful. And that is why there are two articles in the Constitution, that is 98, of course, in regard to Parliament, and 187, Article 187, which relates to the Legislative Assembly, Legislature of the states. These two articles say very clearly that the legislature will have a secretariat and the legislature, and there shall be separate rules for the recruitment and service conditions of the employees who are working there. After all, Article 309 is there, which deals with all the employees under the executive. But here, the Constitution makes a provided separate rule for governing the conduct, the service and employment, the recruitment and service conditions of the employees. That is to free them from the control of the executive. That is where the independence becomes very, very important. Independence of the Secretariat. In 1929, Vithalbhai Patel, the elder brother of Vallabhbhai Patel, he had fought with the British government to bring about this independence because he wanted independent Secretariat. If it is a part of the government, this scrutiny of the governmental actions or governmental functioning by the legislature is not possible. And therefore, you must have an independent Secretariat, and that is provided for in the Constitution. And each legislature must have this autonomy, or functional autonomy, and the autonomy of the Secretariats. That needs to be established. And then, in the real sense, there will be autonomy and there will be independence in the legislature and also in the Secretariat. I think with these 3 points, I will finish my initial observation. I think I have exceeded your time.